When the demographics in Brisbane came back about 10 years ago, it was said that we needed a tertiary acute hospital on this side of Brisbane. And it was the Holy Spirit Missionary Sisters and it was the Sisters of Charity who formed the alliance.
In 2001, when the hospital opened, some of the staff who worked here came from the old Holy Spirit Hospital on Wickham Terrace.
It was behind a building construction site when I first saw it, so I was employed by a place that didn't even have the front door keys when I first came here.
Of sitting around on cardboard boxes because none of the furniture had arrived.
So we had the opportunity then to say, look, there's a new private hospital opening with a private emergency department with the care, compassion, dignity, and we said, yeah, we're in.
I've gradually moved all of my practice out here to Holy Spirit Northside.
I was here the first week, and probably the first day, I think, that the hospital opened.
I came across here and immediately liked the feel of the hospital.
I personally followed the values of the hospital and came here because I liked the way the hospital's run and what they stood for.
Whether a hospital is good or not is dependent upon the staff, and the staff here are wonderful.
It's a relatively small hospital, 195 beds, but clinically very, very complex. And it has established that because of the doctors that work here, and I believe they enjoy working with each other because of this collaborative approach they have.
Virtually all the specialists here know each other. To discuss any problem is a matter of just a quick phone call or a chat in the corridor.
Because none of us work as individuals in a cocoon. To look after people, they may well need my services, they need the support of expert nurses, they need often the input of our ICU, and of course I rely on my surgical colleagues essentially every day of our working life here.
Organisations run by a Christian organisation, so everybody's all look after each other, work as a team.
Oh, it's great, it's like a symbiotic relationship. You know, we get better and better, or even it's like a good pinful of wine. If you've got two people working together, you know, you can conquer anything.
So how have things changed in my profession over the last 10 years? The increase in the frequency with which we see resistant organisms, so the so-called superbugs.
Perhaps most notably with endoscopic ultrasound.
The biggest changes that I've seen is the early detection in bowel cancer, the arrival of colorectal surgeons.
It is so good now with the laparoscopes that we can use miniature laparoscopes instead of the larger 10mm scopes.
We can now access all records electronically anywhere in the hospital or anywhere we can get a network connection. We now have computer-aided surgery devices built into 3 of the theatres now.
Everything is so much faster, everything has to be so much more efficient.
The latest change being our new cath lab is a big step forward for our labs.
In my field, we've gone from giving patients a clot buster to bringing them straight into the cardiac cath lab and stenting their artery to open it up, and I think the evidence is quite clear that what we're doing in that particular setting saves lives.
How have I changed people's lives? I have tried very hard in the intensive care unit to make it a relaxed place to work, and so we've concentrated a lot on education.
We've changed people's perceptions of their illnesses, and the recovery times have changed because of the input that we provided.
I've never actually worked in an environment where we've been given as many thank you cards and thank you gifts from patients and relatives.
And in Day Cardiac we give them a lot of education about the disease that they do have and then what they should be looking at. And I think that education to the patients does do a lot in terms of changing their lives.
If I can help to ease their stress and their fear within themselves, then that's my job done.
We have sometimes a 2-minute, a 20-minute opportunity to make a difference in the other person's life.
The biggest role that I play in teaching at the hospital is mainly with the nursing staff. We have obviously junior nurses who work here and are in their graduate program.
I was encouraged to further my studies and I went back to QUT and upgraded from a hospital-trained registered nurse to a Bachelor of Nursing. I was given lots of support from all areas of the hospital.
Holy Spirit has always encouraged me to go on further, and I'm doing my RN at the moment.
We've been running the laparoscopic advanced colorectal surgery workshop every 4 weeks, and as well as that we've been doing a few live broadcasts of surgery as far afield as Rome in the last year or two.
The infrastructure that's coming with the $5 million federal government grant to build the education centre. There'll be medical students heavily involved in private practice now.
I also have a full-time research nurse. We perform clinical trial research and also independently funded research at this hospital.
That's very stimulating to have people around you who are developing and training and asking you difficult questions, and that helps me to stay up to date and stay on my toes and for us to share information.
Well, what immediately springs to mind is quite a milestone for me was a push-up competition that we actually had in the control room here, and I beat one of our head cardiologists, Dr. Connoroni.
Now, I don't quite remember that that particular competition. I think that she may have thought that she won, but I think that there was some dispute about the result.
We had a patient that was extremely unwell and had to be rushed to the operating theatre, and they had a number of body piercings everywhere. And I ended up being the person that was in the spot that needed to remove all of these body piercings.
Probably the most fun experience I had was a gentleman that organised my marriage to his son without involving me or his son.
Not sure about that one. I have to think about it. What's the weirdest thing that's happened?
I turned up here at about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning to admit a truck driver, very large chap. Yeah, trying to be polite, but I won't turn the light on. So to have a bald guy giving this guy a tap on the shoulder at 2 in the morning to talk to him, I thought it was probably the closest I've come to getting a punch in the face.
I was walking down the hall and a patient was wheeling himself out the hall, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I saved his life 10 years ago, and I'm not a doctor."
Something oddball has happened. I'm sure they do.
The hospital obviously is a Catholic hospital with a distinct mission and values. We've grown a group of like-minded people who believe in the mission.
Our values of compassion, unity, dignity and justice are very important. We use that in our recruitment of staff.
You use them every day in some form or another.
Look, I really think the values of this organisation are important, so I tend to lead by example.
Of compassion and unity and justice really, I think, really do make a difference.
Maybe the values, and just that everyone believes in what they're doing.
That people come as they are, that we will love them as whole human beings, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. We're aware that they have a life story. The sisters have given us their legacy.
The reason why I decided to volunteer, I lost my husband and I was left with an empty nest at home.
To give something back to the community.
I just retired from teaching.
Our volunteers enhance the service we give. They offer a wonderful contribution to our patients by giving them that little bit extra in time, support, conversation, holding a hand.
Within a hospital there are always people who have been in hospital a long time, getting a bit down, a bit blue, maybe don't have any family support, don't get many visitors. And to have volunteers in the hospital that can spend that extra bit of time.
Which often means more to the patient than us doing their blood pressure.
The volunteers certainly help contribute to ICU to put together some of our paperwork packages as well.
Little things like photocopying, putting charts together. They actually go into each patient's room and they change the flowers and just get the room looking a little bit more friendly and happy.
If there's a certain article that we would like for a particular ward, jigsaw puzzles or magazines, and then they'll go and they'll fundraise for that particular thing.
And this is a very pleasant
hospital to have a volunteer experience.
Probably the most challenging was just, you know, when you first start out as a registered nurse, that transition from a student to an actual nurse. I was only 19.
To get through accreditation, that's one of the main roles that I'm responsible for.
The biggest challenges for me as an after-hours coordinator is probably staffing the wards adequately.
And I know many times over the last 10 years there's been days when we'd start the day looking at what's ahead of us in terms of the amount of people that we need to get through the hospital today or into beds, and it would seem insurmountable at the start of the day. But there's never been a day yet that we haven't done that.
Yeah, I think the single biggest challenge for us has been the growth of the hospital. It was built. For 4 years it was half empty, and then people realised that there was a quality service here, and suddenly we had a huge influx of specialists and patients, and we went from being empty to over full.
We've had many challenging cases at the hospital. We're often referred patients who have had failed surgery at other institutions, and the buck stops with us often.
The biggest challenges we usually face are the extremely difficult second, third, fourth revision hip replacements.
I really haven't faced any big challenges yet, but I think they're about to come. And they've already started. I think that the growing pressure on the cost of treating people and the limited budget we have is going to change the way we do things.
My best day in the 10 years, we've had a few very sick patients. One of them has come back on a regular basis over the last 5 or 6 years, so the day he survived was a great day, but the fact that he keeps coming back to say hello every year on the anniversary is lovely.
Every day I work at Holy Spirit, I get a different reward.
Brought a coffee out to a patient while we were treating his wound. He said, "Can I curse?" "Can't." He said, "Doc, this is the greatest day ever. A doctor making me a coffee." So it's the simple things, simple pleasures, you know, that doesn't have to be medicine.
The best thing that's ever happened to me would be meeting my now husband, who was a level 2 on the ground floor.
The best days when I leave here is when I've helped someone cope with what news they've heard. Sometimes it's not good news.
To be a part of that end stage of their life, the last few days of their lives. And I suppose some of the saddest but most rewarding experiences of the last 10 years have actually revolved around that, which is kind of odd in a way, and you learn from that.
It's awful to say, but maybe the best day I've had here is the day that I became unwell, and the hospital cared for me, and my ICU family cared for me through that time as well. But it wasn't a specific day, and it's terrible to say that your best day is when you weren't well. But yeah, it showed to me the importance of working here at Holy Spirit Northside.
I spent the day at a different hospital, and the intensive care unit ran perfectly without me. I felt that that was a tenement to the fact that we trained people well, they respected one another, that I was there to redirect things, but that the basic place ran by itself, and that's how I wanted to set it up. Came back into work the next day, everyone was very understanding, but everything was done perfectly, and I was really proud that day.
"10 years from now, I would like to see us more involved with other hospitals, overseas hospitals."
Intensive care is on the brink of some very exciting breakthroughs in terms of different ways of ventilation and different ways of managing heart failure.
I think the technology will change, so there'll be new procedures, patients coming in with the same disease being treated differently.
Potentially a little bit more cardiac MR. And also intravascular imaging.
Consolidating what we've been doing well for the last 10 years, but also broadening our scope as part of our, if you like, our maturation as a hospital.
Like everything else, you do wonder, you know, where we're going to be, because it really is moving at such a fast pace.
And perhaps 3D laparoscopic surgery, and perhaps more with the introduction of robotics as well.
I envisage this hospital to be one of the leading private hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere.
The educational benefits and opportunities here are vast, and that's what I feel we need to tap into over the next 10 years.
I think it'll be a pretty exciting place to work.
In 10 years, we have learnt, we have taught, and discovered new ideas. We have forged relationships, created a reputation, been inspired and rewarded. We have helped others and have been helped by others. We have faced challenges and brought out the best in people, and in doing so, changed people's lives for the better. That's what 10 years means at Holy Spirit Northside.
The remarkable people that work here, they go about their job, they love what they do. It doesn't matter if they're the doctor, the nurse, the person that works in the deck cafe, they all contribute something to our hospital community and in turn our patients.